Hello, welcome to Cpp.chat, an almost regular look at what's going on in the world of C++, chatting with guests from the community. But of course, before we get to that, John really needs to read a disclaimer.
Thank you very much, Phil. Cpp.chat does not provide protection or medical advice or sell any cure or treatment for disease. The information contained in this website and our products are intended to complement your pet. In no way do our products protect your pet in no way or form. Consult with your own medical advisors who can discuss you and your pet's individual needs. Thank you very much, Phil.
So what pet do we have on today?
Well, I've been teasing Harald about Harald. We should introduce Harald. Our guest today is Harald Achitz. Did I say it right?
Achitz.
Achitz. All right. Harald was kind enough to invite my wife and I to his home when we were traveling, and so we were in Stockholm, and he invited us to visit. And he has a pet dog that is an amazing amount of work. Tell us about your dog. I don't even remember the dog's name. What's
she's called Lexi, and she's a
Lexi,
Alaska Husky mix. And my PT, my personal trainer, that I get enough movement outdoor. So
because she really needs to be walked every day and walked not a little.
Yes, that's true. So this is good because I don't need to think, do I go out or not? I just go.
Yeah.
And we have our ways. She's 10 years this year, so it's a little bit less. But she still wants to make distances, and there is no day where I go less than 5 kilometers for sure.
So an Alaskan Husky, she is bred to pull a sled very long distances for a very long period of time.
Not this dog actually. She's more the sprinting type.
Oh, really?
So Alaska Husky is not a bred actually. It's a mixture by default. So they put together what works, right? And if you want the sledge dog for weight, you have more the Malamute in breed, and if you take this what these people for the Iditarod also use, then you have this more. They come more for the Greyhound, but they put in whatever works for them. And she's a rescue dog, so.
Mm-hmm. She's just a pet. You're not using her as a sled dog.
No. I mean, she was. We had just this. So when we were hiking and she was younger, I had her on a leash and she was pulling me a little bit because we were always too slow for her. But this came down a little bit. But when it's winter like now, she's 5 years younger. And
yeah. So I just admire your dedication to this pet. It's so much love you have for this animal. It's great. Anyway, so
here in the morning, sleeping there beside me.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's not actually what we had you on. Although I'm fascinated by dogs. As soon as we start talking dogs, I get pretty interested. But anyway,
it is in the show notes.
It is in the show notes. That's right. So also in the show notes is your new responsibilities with the standards committee. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
I can do this. Yes, there is, by the way, a standard committee meeting just today.
Yeah,
the whole week a virtual one. But the story goes a little bit longer for me. So I'm not directly involved in WG21 working group. What I'm involved is in the local SG22 Miro. And now let's make a story out of this. I was for a long time interested in who is the Swedish voice in the standard committee, because I always hear to write C++ is a democratic language. Every country has a voice. And I was so, okay, who is the Swedish voice? And it turned out there is none. So when we had COVID and I had a little bit more time because I didn't organize meetups, I invested a little bit more in this research and find out if there is none, what would it require to create one? And so I contacted a few people, and someone said, "Oh, I tried it here, and it didn't work. So you need to work with the SIS, Swedish Institute of Standards, and that's a little bit complicated and so on." So, but when I had time, I contacted the SIS.
So there's the Swedish Institute of Standards now is a government body.
It's a non-profit organization.
Okay, and I think
takes care.
Yeah, I think every country would have the equivalent of that. So that's kind of, I mean, in the U.S. there's the American National Standards Institute, ANSI,
Yes.
right? And so, what is it? What is it in Britain?
The BSI, British
The
Standards
BSI.
Institute.
Yeah. So every country has this, and essentially all these countries. So the ISO is actually an international treaty, it's literally signed by all these nations, and there's different. I've learned that there's different status of nations. Some nations are like full members, and some nations are like kind of members. I don't know what the whole is, and then some nations have never signed it at all. And so, but every nation that signs it has designated some organization that is the actual member, and that's in this case the Swedish. Would you call it Swedish Standards Institute?
Swedish Institute of Standards. Yes.
Okay. All right. And so, if you want to set up a membership in a particular ISO group, such as Working Group 21, the C++ group, then you need to go through them to be blessed as the representative. And that's what you did then.
Yes, this is how I started the conversations. I needed a local mirror of WG21. And they told me that's not possible because a local mirror of WG doesn't exist, right? So what you need to do is you need a local mirror of the subcommittee 22. And with this mirror, this translates in Swedish to Arbetsgruppe. So it's working group translated word for word. So it's a lot of confusion for me when I use all these words because not all translate very luckily. But the thing was, they told me, yeah, you need to have you cannot have this local mirror. You need to have the SG22 mirror, and say, okay, let's create one, right? And it was actually, it took quite some time and some communication with the SIS to explain maybe the difference between the C++ standard in which we are interested and the way they work, and other standards where the whole standard is developed really in ISO meetings and with ISO documents, and there is nothing like the working groups, like the meetings that happen now, where people make something and then basically the final result goes just to the voting. So other standards have a little bit a different working approach than the C++. But yeah, after communicating with this, they said, hey, we have people here in Sweden. They are talented. They are interested in joining, especially the C++ working group, but also the C, and then which one is the other one? The WG23 programming language vulnerabilities, which is interesting for automotive and so on, to monitor what's going on. And I wanted to let the people that want to participate have an open door, right? That they're not in the situation like, if I would like to participate, there is nothing, right? And you start from nothing. So I tried to create this door. And with the help of SIS, we got a very good partner at SIS. His name is Patrick. And he managed us through the process of setting up this group. And now it exists since late summer, autumn, you can say. And we are currently mostly focused on of course, the C++ part from our members. But since I'm the convener of the local mirror of the subcommittee 22. So I'm a little bit interested also in the other working groups, or in Swedish it's then called experts groups, and this is yes.
So Working Group 22 is the group that's focused on C++ compatibility or interoperability. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you take
Or study group. That's the study group
the
22.
study
That's
group
what I'm confused.
22 has
Yeah.
is the language, what's the programming languages, the environments and system software interfaces. So this contains Cobol, Fortran, Ada, C, Prolog, C++,
Oh, I see. Okay.
programming language vulnerabilities, and the Linux standard base. I think we can agree that this is not very actual anymore. But Cobol has development, and I have seen other papers going through my document list recently. And I will try also to promote this a little bit to the Cobol people in any case, because we have a lot of banks here in Sweden and Cobol developer, and maybe they are interested. So yeah, I'm a little bit in the that I'm a little bit focused on the whole group, but of course especially on the C++ topic and the related topics. Yeah.
And so you now are the individual who can cast the vote for Sweden in the standards committee?
Now the process is like this. So from time to time, papers appear, right?
Uh-huh.
So standard papers, and the most recent one was, I'm not sure if it's the most recent, but the very recent one was a funny one. It was changing the wording for a technical specification suggestion to asynchronous programming. So just changing the wording, had already a document there, right? And then
Changing it from what?
The wording.
Oh,
changing the
from
wording
what to what?
in one document that is a base for technical specification, and then maybe become part of the standard in some future. So it is very interesting what you learn, what exists in this. The voting process is so we have basically these expert groups now. We have some people joined, so from automotive, from finance, blockchain, compiler vendor. We have also compiler here in Sweden. And they make everyone makes the vote. You can say yes or no. If you say no, you should say why not, or you say I don't have any opinion to this, which is I don't have any opinions to a Cobol standard, for example, right? But and for C++, I pass this on to the experts. But yeah, this is the process. That once the papers arrive, you give all these experts give their votes, and the votes get accumulated to one vote, and this is then the Swedish vote that will then be transmitted from ESO to the world.
And you've been doing this since summer, you said.
So the process, the whole meetings, the first explaining what we are, that
right.
We are not just a bunch of freaks that do this for 3 months and then stop and so on, and that we have a long-term interest behind this, because I mean this provides a little bit of the infrastructure for us, and they have of course also costs, and sometimes there is a little bit cost attached, but we have a little bit of special agreement at the moment. This will last for some time, and then we will look how this works. Our goal is to have this group accessible as possible, so that people that are interested in hey, what's this standard thing, right? At least they have the first contact address with whom to talk, people that are involved, that they know a way in how to participate, because this is not just the participation is sometimes a little bit difficult to explain, because you need two people. You need someone who is interested from skills, and someone who's interested from management, because people join through companies. And
right.
Now you say, hey, please company, could you sign these papers that someone of you joins the experts groups or whatever group they wish to join. And then it's of course, for a manager, there are different reasons than for an individual who says, okay, I'm interested in the C++ standard. I would like to participate in maybe writing papers and whatnot, right? But these people are very easy to address from my side. It's a little bit harder to address the management, where you say, hey, why would the company want to dedicate employee time that they participate in something? And then there is already the fear, oh, I have a budget for my people, and what does it cost? How much time will it be? And this is, of course, a little bit different explained. For management, you explain, hey, it's that much time, how much the people want to invest, right? How much they want to spend time monitoring the existing activity, how much they want to spend in suggesting something or not. But also for the company, why is it interesting for you as manager? Maybe you show your company's engagement, you meet people from other companies that are already there, so you can use this a little bit for networking. And in Sweden, you join, and let me just add this information. So if you join the SG22, this is the SC22, sorry, I always mixed the letters up. So the subcommittee, this is embedded in something that is called in Swedish TK, as a technical committee 611. And this is actually another umbrella where you have a lot of other, how to say, other subcommittee mirrors for software product and system quality, the agile and the big data, artificial intelligence. So there are a lot of bigger groups that are there involved.
So focusing other than language specific sort of stuff.
Yes, exactly. So this is then one, but on company level, if you are in the ISO, you are embedded in the TK 611, and there is a lot of other stuff going on, like the artificial intelligence, big data, and so on. So this is then interesting, of course, for the management.
So you mentioned other languages. Specifically, you talked about Cobol, which I find interesting because I haven't even heard the word Cobol in probably a year. So I'm assuming, and maybe this is just my naivete. So you can set me straight. But my guess would be that C++ is much more active in terms of standardization than Cobol and even C and things like this, which are not evolving nearly as quickly as C++ is.
Yes, but there is something new happening, and Cobol is not dead, right? So banks and insurances, and they're still interested. I'm not sure how much interested they are in the language specification per se, because they have their way of working since 40 years and adapt this. But maybe this is also a reason why it would be interesting for them to join and mirror actually what's going on in the Cobol standardization.
Well, I can see certain things like Unicode. I'm pretty much guaranteeing that when Cobol was invented, nobody thought about Unicode, right? But now, if you're international banking, you're dealing with international names and things like that, and you need to be able to deal with these things, and having that done in a standard way is the way it should be done.
Yes, so I cannot say what they actually have in the papers. Even if I have opened the PDF, the latest, it was huge. I can say so. The last Cobol paper this comes through my inbox. This was really huge. So there is active things going on, and I know the here in Sweden the banks, they are constantly looking for Cobol developer to make even their own trainings courses when they find people and to see, okay, this is a candidate that will stay longer. Then they create their own trainings classes, and there are also banks that bear up for this. So it is interesting, and I've also seen that something going on at ADA, I think recently, where I said I have no opinion on this. I cannot vote on this. Yeah, but of course the C++ is the most active one, I would say, since there is a lot of development is going on, and we know a little bit about what is in C going on. Right. It's very interesting how in future how we succeed in getting those both a little bit closer.
Right.
I know there is Sorry.
Go ahead. I was just
there is I think a study group that tries to find out how to get a little bit closer and have better synchronity in releasing standards, and that they at least fit together somehow.
Right. Well, I think there's literally thousands of programming languages out there, and it's surprising. It's really a very small handful of languages that are part of an international standard, and in fact, a lot of languages that you've heard of are not standardized in that sense. And
I wouldn't say that they're not standardized. They may be standardized in a different way. I mean, JavaScript has also their standard,
right?
And then if you say the Python stuff have the pip stuff, and Rust has found a process, and so they are just this. They go different ways, and I cannot say if it's better. It's different. ISO is maybe more a little bit a historic perspective. If you look what is basically in there, how these things started a little bit before the other things. so maybe this is one of the reason. I'm not sure how much I cannot translate the word code smell to standards, but how much negative associations some people have with the ISO standard. Oh my God, I need to read boring papers. And I know it from when I did programming for security environments or so, where you had a lot of ISOs to follow, where I say, oh my God, you need to read this, you need to apply this. It puts me into chains I cannot develop as I want, and so on and so on. So yeah. But we have also additional standards on top of this, like MISRA for C.
Right.
Where people create their own idea of a safe subset and call it a standard. I'm not sure if this is, and SAS is, I think, another one for C. And there are also study groups, I think, in the C++ language, how this can work together with C++, because MISRA had a C++ derivative also, but I think this is heavily outdated. So.
Well, there's a new MISRA coming out very soon, which incorporates the auto SARS stuff as well. So that will soon get re-updated.
The industry needs it, yeah.
I'm kind of curious about that because I've not had a great opinion of the original standard. I think seemed to me it was a standard that was written by people who didn't understand C++, and therefore it's not a good fit for people who are excited about the language. It seemed like it was done at cross purposes to some extent. So a new version of that represents an opportunity. But it does seem like there's lots of people who are defining, the subset of C++ that you should actually use. You know what I'm saying? It's because almost everyone agrees that C++ it's way too complicated and many features that it shouldn't have, but we can't take them out because if we take them out, we break code and we can't break code. And in fact, I just got. Here's John Linkos's book, Embracing Modern C++ Safely.
And basically that's several books, right?
Yeah. It's an amazingly thick book. I mean, but yeah, the point is he's basically saying this is the subset of C++ that I think is useful. I've gone round and round with him on a few points, but in general, of course, I would agree with him. But yeah, I mean, this is what we do. The standards committee recognize that something's clumsy and they say, well, here's a better way to do this thing, but they don't take out the old way because doing that would break code and they don't want to do that. So this is the situation that we're seeing ourselves.
Yeah, that's difficult.
Yeah, it's the curse of backward compatibility, that when we make mistakes, we live with those essentially forever.
I think when it comes to MISRA and SAS, the things they put in is also something where they can build tooling around. that they can build actual tooling. Like a lot of the thing, if you read the old MISRA stuff, you say, hey, this is a compiler warnings, just turn on your compiler warnings and you will be fine, right? So a lot of things, but then you think, hey, when has this thing been written and for what type of compilers? Oh, this is some embedded compiler, someone forked GCC, and you don't have that great warnings there, so you use a static analyzer to check that these warnings, right? So and looking forward to the new releases of this, because this heavily required to have a more modern version that respects today's development workflow and tooling.
Well, I think I know just the person that we should have on to talk about that.
Yeah, they're
Planning the next show already.
That's good.
All right, so so you've been. How long did this process take you to get to contact the Swedish Institute of Standards and get the whole ball rolling so that you're now set up to do this? You said you've started. You've been doing it since last year, last summer. But is that when you started doing it, or was that when you got it all in place?
I can't. Maybe at the beginning of last year that I started to have the real contact with someone at CIS.
So it took about a half a year to get it all up and.
Yes, exactly. So the difficult thing was also a little bit to explain how because if you think about it, why would you need the local group? You can join WG21 working group meetings if you have currently the Zoom link, which is not that difficult to get. But if it's physically, right, when you look like the event that happened in Prague, you just can go straight there and participate, right? So, and this setup was a little bit unfamiliar, maybe for the people I was talking with this. So we had to explain this, and that my main motivation is to have more or less an open platform to get the people that we have here in Sweden interested. Because I knew when I got interested in this topic and then had the time to investigate it, I talked with several people and I tried it, but it didn't work out. And then, they had something to develop, so they didn't catch up, right? And I had the same, but when I was at the first wall, I said, okay, there is a wall, how can I get rid of this, or how can I get door into this wall? And then I made the door into this wall, and then the next steps, and finally we have this setup now, and we'll see how this works out.
So it takes a little bit of perseverance to climb all those walls.
Yeah, so like everything, consistency and don't get easy frustrated when it's like the same when you work talking companies with your management, and I would like to have this because I have this idea, and the first thing you will hear is probably no. So then you need to do this a little bit different. But I have to say this was very helpful. They didn't make huge problems, right? So they are great partners. From the very beginning, I got great explanations and what this is. And first, even they leveled me up because I had no idea about what I was talking. Literally, I was just so, hey, there is this working group from C++. Can we have a mirror, right? And they leveled me up what is required, how this works, what normally for financial investments are attached to this. Finding a way that is possible also now for freelancers to join if they have the company and they're interested and have the reference that we say, okay, we know this person since he's a very good person and he fits into this thing and so on.
So were they happy to have you set this up? I mean, the SIS?
I think they are because they want things to happen, right?
So, they want to see Sweden represented.
Oh yes.
Right.
And there is a lot of other work, and we have some great companies here in Sweden. They do a lot of standardization in other parts, right? So they're very open and very helpful that this happens and interested in people participating.
Yeah, you don't think about all the things, I mean, because of the world we live in, we talk about the steeplest standard all the time, but there's things around you all the time. I mean, somebody was telling me about the story of the USB-C implementation, and of course that comes from a standards committee. That's not some company that decided that. Although it was strongly influenced, that was kind of the story they were telling me. There was a company that kind of said, hey, we have a lot of concerns about USB-C, and they went in and they said, hey, it needs to have these properties. You need to be able to reverse it so it can't be plugged in wrong, and all these things. And basically, we're surrounded by things. And if the standard is well done, I mean, I really like the new USB-C plug. I don't like the fact that it's made everything else obsolete, but it is a better plug. And there's just it's not just software standards. There's standards all around us. And
there is a great intro video from the CIS. Maybe it's still on the homepage, where they just fly around with the camera and show everywhere where is a standard attached, which ISO standards these actually are, right? So you have them literally everywhere. Everywhere we have transport, construction areas, traffic. I mean, there is nothing where basically there is not on some level where you need to agree, right? And this is what the ISO standard basically is, right? Even and we don't have so much ways where we can agree on an international level, and this is one, right? If it's now optimal, the best case, it's a good case. It's a good tool that we have that solves a lot of cases. I say, okay, there need to be agreement if we want to have things going. And we will see there are study groups also for data exchange formats and so on. We will see how this proceeds, because we maybe don't want that 2-3 big tech companies define their own format, and then the rest of the world is maybe can look at it and having their we support this format, and it's a nice thing, right?
Right. All right. So my first introduction to you had nothing to do with standards committee, but it was actually through user groups, because you've been working with user groups there in Sweden for quite a while. In fact, quite a while, right? You want to tell us a little bit about what you've got going on as a user group in Sweden?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm doing this since 2016, and the story where I started this is pretty similar to the ISO story. I thought, hey, why is there nothing? And sometimes if there is nothing and you want something to happen, you have to do it on your own. And then it turned out that this is a great thing, and it became my favorite hobby. Currently, what's going on here? I'm starting today. We're actually in the concrete plans of the next physical meetup, which might happen in February if I can bring all the balls in the
So will this
basket.
be your first physical for a while?
No, we had one in November, where the restrictions in Stockholm were a little bit relaxed, and so we quickly made one. and here and in Gothenburg, and it was great. We had in Stockholm 70 plus visitors, and super exciting topics for the evening, and everyone was so happy that this could happen. And then
so there are two different groups in Stockholm and Gothenburg, or
there are
is that one group?
There are multiple groups. So meetup groups, they are for the city where you are. And when I started the whole thing, there was just something in Stockholm, and there I called it Sweden CPP and said, hey, this place is open for whole Sweden, even if we are located in Stockholm. But if you're interested in something, just contact me and we will do something. And then after a while, it turned out that there is interest in Gothenburg. So I created this meetup group there, basically, but I don't do anything, right? There are people in Gothenburg that organize the events and keep the contact to the events host possibles. I could also organize
So you just set it up and they've taken over.
Exactly,
moving it forward. I see.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and I'm the consistent person there that is always there since years, and the rest of the team is rotating, because it's a huge commitment running something, and it's very often you do something on a volunteer base for 3 months, 6 months, but then when it becomes or everyone expecting me to do this, right? It's not the drive goes away for a lot of people.
It's not as fun anymore.
Yeah, it can be tricky to be consistent over a long time with such activities. Yeah. But I mean, there is a team that is basically unchanged from the beginning. It's 3 people, but they exchange a little bit in the communication with sponsors and so on. Then we have
So
another.
were you active during the pandemic doing virtual events, or did you just go in hiatus?
No. So when when it was clear that we cannot have meetups for a longer time, I was looking into the possibilities of doing that virtual, of course, right? And it would have meant for me to get in touch with new technology and learning about this, and I find this actually pretty interesting. So I love recording and editing videos and putting them on YouTube later. But this whole live streaming setup would have been new for me. And then I said, so okay, but hey, when everything is virtual and a lot of people doing this already, then I could basically attend every meetup I want that is virtual, right? And so let's have a look what meetups exist that do virtual events. And when I looked at this, it turned out these are pretty many. And I can actually attend a C++ meetup virtually 2 times a week if I want. Maybe times 2 restriction 1 time a week at least. And it was, so why should I add something? It didn't feel right. So we had basically just 2 events virtual, because one time we have been requested by a software sponsor. They had their developer days anyway, so we announced it on the meetup page. And another time it happened in Gothenburg from Sensei, how you pronounce his name. And they did a great virtual meetup, but it was so, okay, it's there technically set up and so on. And we just announced it in multiple cities at the time, because we're in the same countries. But I didn't have a motivation to create something that already exists 500 times. So what I did was, okay, I accumulate all the meetup data and put it on the Sweden CPP homepage. So if you want to see how many meetups you have and where they are, and so you just go to this list and you can look this up.
So let's make sure we get that in the show notes. But that's been really valuable. I have attended meetups virtually, the Colorado user group, Austin, Israel, the Munich one, I know, probably at least 2 other ones in Germany. So I've really appreciated this. I mean, this has really been, it's kind of one of the things that I did is I went to all these different meetups everywhere, and I joined them just so that I could see what kinds of topics were being presented and who was active and doing things like that. And that was, pre-pandemic. I was never intending to actually attend the meetups. I just wanted to be a member so that I could see the announcements, because I just wanted to know what was going on. And then, but then suddenly people started having virtual meetings, and it was like, oh, well, I can just drop by. And as you said, I don't have time to do them all. There's so many possible, but it has really been exciting to be able to see, see people's faces and see people involved. It was really kind of a nice feeling. And I remember the first time we did a virtual event here in the Bay Area, which we have not been. I mean, we kind of went dead through the whole time, on hiatus or whatever, but we did have 1 or 2 virtual meetings, and it was really exciting just to see people I knew. It's been a long time, and oh wow, there's so-and-so and there's so-and-so. And it was a weird feeling, because I hadn't anticipated that kind of emotional reaction, but just recognizing, familiar faces again was, this pandemic, I'm against it. I'm voting against it next time. I don't know whose idea this was, but
it is nice. When we had this virtual event in Gothenburg, I was for a moment thinking, hey, maybe I should have done something. But I think my decision for me was the right one. I said to her, if everyone wants to do it, feel free, I will support you. But I spend so much time online and so on that for me this video stuff is then mostly asynchronous activity, where I get the talk and watch it in 3 chunks or so. it's then very difficult for me in the evening to be again attached to a screen and a table. So,
well, that
C++
has
London was going quite regularly online until a few months ago. It started to slow down, mostly because I started traveling again. It's very difficult to maintain enthusiasm for virtual events when you're actually doing physical events again.
Right. Yeah, I think the time zone thing has affected things too. I mean, it's kind of weird to go to user groups early in the morning, but that's because it's an evening event for where it's hosted from, but it seems like a weird time for me. And it depends on what you have on. You can have weird conflicts and things like that, but a lot of them, like I say, I've enjoyed the ability to do it, and try to do it as often as I can, but have not been regular about it. But I've enjoyed it.
I see a huge, interesting opportunity coming to us for hybrid events in a long time, because there are a lot of people that cannot attend events because they just don't live so close to a big city.
Right.
We have quite
so
some.
Speaking of events, we kind of skipped over announcements, didn't we?
Yeah.
I guess that's my fault. Sorry about that, Phil.
Okay.
On our list that's in our notes here is the first one is C++ on C. Do we have anybody here who can give us an update on that?
Oh, God, I wish we did. I'll stand in for them. So,
okay.
Yeah, the C++ on the C call for speakers originally would have ended yesterday, in fact, as we record this, it was Sunday. But we've extended it because we've also changed it slightly to allow people to submit online talks only as well. So we're giving them that opportunity. So since we did that quite late, we've extended the deadline a bit as well. So we've got until now, again, as we record this, next Sunday, that's the 13th. So depending on when this gets out, you may still have a few days left. So shortly after that, the early bird pricing will end as well. So your window is closing.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that if you're doing a conference where speakers are going to be in person, you have to let them know far enough in advance that they can make the travel arrangements. But if it's a virtual conference, you can kind of push that deadline a little bit and have a little more flexibility about that. Let's see. The next one is C++ North, which has their call for submissions open right now. And I believe I don't know what the status is about registration. I mean, they're right on the cusp of opening registration. So it's probably you can actually register for the conference as well. That's going to be in person in Toronto this summer. Then we also have C++ Russia, which is also taking speaker submissions. They're currently doing that as well. And I think we can get the URLs to these in the show notes. And then C++ Now. So C++ Now, wow. You should be looking for an important announcement for C++ Now in the next week. Unfortunately, something's come up we just found out about yesterday, and we have to figure out exactly how we're going to deal with this. But the call for submissions has closed. The plan is to do this for the first time now in 2 years because we canceled 1 year because of timing. We couldn't make it virtual in time. Last year we were virtual. This year is to be on site, and we're just delighted to be back on site because it's just, I mean, C++ Now is a wonderful conference. It's a very intimate kind of conference, and it's the kind of thing that really needs to be done on site. Unfortunately, as I say, you should be looking for an announcement for us in the next few days because we had some news yesterday that was not favorable to us, and so we're gonna be looking at what we can do with that. Kind of a downer note. Anyway, are there any other announcements that we want to talk about? Anything else that's going on that we should bring up? Do you have anything, Harald, you want to say about group activity?
It's a few hours too early, but I will soon soon put up a date for the next physical event here in Stockholm.
Which you're thinking is sometime in February.
It is a motivated. We had everything set up for January actually. So we had the venue, the sponsor for the evening, and speakers and the whole program. And but I just started the conversation literally today. So we booked. Now I need the okay of the other speakers, and then I need to decide is February too fast, or because it's basically then just let me see, just 2 weeks. It would be now 2 weeks. It should actually be fine. So we'll probably make it in February.
Okay. Terrific.
In week 8, yes, very likely. But I still need the okay of some speaker. But we always have more than one speaker, which makes the evenings a little bit challenging to bring everything under the hood. But we have always the setup that we have a talk, then we have the mingle, and then we have again a talk, and then we fade out.
So let's put you in the coaching mode here. If someone is in a country that is not represented with a group on the standards committee, or if somebody is thinking about starting a local user group, what kind of advice would you have? Let's talk first about if they wanted to create their own national body or set that up so that it will participate with C++. What advice do you have for them?
So first of all, they need to figure out how this works in their country. What is the corresponding organization? And when they figured out who this is, they usually have a general email address. And then you just contact them and say, hey, I'm interested in, and take the full name, right? GTC1, SC22, and then maybe WG21. And let them know that you're interested in becoming active, what is required. Maybe there is something, because maybe you get the response, yeah, you're not the first at asking this. Great. And then you find some other, or someone will.
So they could put you in contact with someone else who's already already working on this or has inquired about it before.
So this would be the first step. Then trying to figure out if there is nothing, and so hey, what would it be required from our side to make something happen? And then just listen to the various what exists in the country. And then there is usually various countries have different financial aspects, what it costs. Some countries are totally free. This is paid by the government. Some others not. Where you're supposed to pay a fee for the not for each member, but each company. If you're in a bigger company that is already in some ISO standards involved, they will tell you your company is already there. You just need to assign. So if you're part of a bigger company, it might be a little bit easier. So yeah, this would be the way to form a national. And then for us, it was of course through the user group activity and being connected with a lot of people, right? I knew already a handful of people, whereas it could say, okay, it's not just me that is interested, right? It's actually I don't have the time currently for this to go on this expert level to be really on the C++ standardization detail lists, and I don't have the interest currently also because I do a lot of other things like organizing such things, and I'm producing C++ also still, but I don't want to go and open the rabbit hole and go into standardization details. But I knew people that do, they're interested, they like. Also, they want to do papers. So I had already a group where I said, okay, I'm not alone, right? I come with a whole group, which was for sure a little bit advantage. But even if you don't have this, maybe we will find it. Then find communication ways, making this information public somehow. In Discord channel, Slack channel, just let people know that you do something, inform Cpp.chat, Cpp.cast. Maybe they put it in the show notes in the news section. They say other people can find you if you need this. So this is for the standardization stuff.
I just looked up on Wikipedia. I remember seeing this before. There's different. There's 165 members of the ISO, but there's 3 categories. So there are member bodies, and these are like full members, and then there are corresponding members. These are countries do not have their own standards organization. These members are informed about the works of ISO, but do not participate in standards promulgation. And then subscriber members are countries with small economies. So what you can do is you can just go on Wikipedia and see which group you're in, and then you can figure out if there is a national body that you can contact and set up like there is for, we just mentioned, SIS or ANSI or BIS, whatever your nation's in, find out what that is. Yeah. Well, what about if somebody wants to start up a user group?
Yeah, then just do it. There was actually, we had a guy in Malmö, Olafur Vage, he's from Iceland, but he wanted to start something in Malmö and asked me, so, hey, what do we need? And just nothing. you just make up a meetup group and announce something. And if you're not alone, you have already a user group, right? And then the first thing is people are very often too motivated with user groups. So our first meeting was in a cafe right after work, and we were maybe 10 people. We didn't start out with a conference like evening with 50 plus visitors, right? We started in small, and then from there on we consistent and talking with people, and then if we put positive energy in it, it will come back in some sense. So, but I mean, the question is, what do you expect? What do you want to have? Some people would like to have just a meeting in after work to discuss programming languages. For me, I had the motivation that not everyone can go to a conference. So I had the motivation to create a conference-like experience for people that don't travel to Germany, England, or whatever, because family work, they cannot. So I created this conference like evenings with 2-3 hours conference feeling. Yeah, it depends what you want. Unfortunately, the only platform we have is Meetup. They had a pretty interesting histories over the last years with WeWork as owner and monetization plans that are really annoying, and they're still not. I wish I could point to a better solution, but I'm not able at the moment because the name Meetup is so well known and established that everything goes currently about over this.
Any ideas what we can do about that, Phil?
I have a plan there.
All right, we won't put anybody on the spot about making any announcements.
I mean, there are good solutions like Together community, which is basically a Python
so have you
open source.
It's interesting that was your goal from the beginning, because there have been some user groups that have simply been successful enough that they put on a program. I think that Phil's user group in London was so successful that's kind of where C++ on C came out of. I think that Israel, when they started the user group, they kind of said, well, if this user group thing takes off, we'll start a conference. And that's where core C++ came from. And C++ North, the new conference this year, was from the user group in Toronto. And it was the same sort of thing. They had a great deal of success. So have you thought about doing a Swedish conference, or do you think that
from time to time?
Yeah.
From time to time, but then I have seen what happened to all of you when COVID struck.
Yeah. I would kind of wait
until lost the interest, because we should mention this. There is Cpp.com, which you, John, initialized, right? So where we had until 1 year into COVID, we community organizers around the world met. And one of the things was that I could listen to you and Phil and the other people that generates events and what's the process. So I'm not super high motivated in this because it's a lot of job, right? And I have a full-time job, maybe even more with all the things I have already going on. So I would not know how to get the time. But I was interested in what's going on. And then I have seen when COVID came, what struggles you all had with you have been in contracts and all of a sudden things were canceled, but these contracts, of course, not. Nobody cares, right? and for some, I know for some it was really difficult times. So I'm not sure about this. Maybe if someone is interested, I can support here.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the question how much C++ conference space is left, because we had very long nothing. And currently it feels we have quite a lot, right? I mean, Germany is not that far away. There is a train from Sweden to Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
You just take the train overnight and you're there. England, Sweden, it's just the hops, basically. And then even Russia, St. Petersburg would not be technically so far away at the moment. So I'm not sure what about the format and how it would fit in and date and so on. We have the great thing in Italy, right? The Italians have great conference every year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the calendar, I'd say, wow, this is actually already. So what should I do that fits in? It would, of course, be that for people local that don't travel, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go to a conference and you go home. So having something smaller in the city would make sense. Maybe one day, but currently it's.
Let me ask you this question. I think we're almost running out of time here, but I do want to ask you this question about language, because I know that at least my experience has been that the German user groups are often conducted in English, even though almost everyone there is German. It's great for me because as a visitor, I've spoken to the local user groups and it works out great that I can speak in English because I'm not doing that in German. But when I've talked to, and I know you're actually from Germany, correct? You're
Austria.
from Germany and from Austria. All right. The educational system there is such that people will learn English. And so an educated C++ programmer is almost certainly fluent in English. And I think this is one of the things that has caused some of the local groups to say, well, we need to have, I know that I believe this is the case that the local user group in Paris, the Paris group, does some of the sessions, and they're more like intro sessions are done in French, but the advanced sessions are done in English. And I think this can affect it. And that's why I was asking is your experience that most C++ programmers in Sweden are fluent in English?
Of
Or
course,
if you did do a local group, would there be a local conference? Would it be done in
no, there
Swedish?
is no interest in Swedish. There are, interestingly, we have developer podcasts. They are in Swedish, and they are popular. They are good, and people like it, and they translate good. But for our meetups, we have one Swedish talk at the very beginning, but we have 50% people that are not Swedish attending.
Oh, really?
So because Stockholm is an international city, so you will hardly find a more international city when it comes to development in Europe, maybe Berlin, but I think Stockholm is more interesting. This is why I'm here.
Yeah.
So half of the people would have a hard time of following, and even if I speak Swedish okay-ish, but not when it comes to computer, because it's these people like me dealing with two foreign languages, right? I can talk kindergarten and so on. The things I learned in Swedish, they just work in Swedish, not in English. But when it comes to computer, if I look at the screen or think about programming, I don't know what language I speak. It just comes English. So there is no need. And Swedish people speak better English than English people. So they have much better education, not this strange accent I have. So they're also so good, great with this language.
All right. Yeah. Well, this is not a complete surprise to me. As I said, I've done training in Germany, and the training was all done in English, and it was not a problem for anyone in the training that we were speaking English. It does seem as if maybe the programming world, or certainly the C++ world, does seem to be an English-speaking world. I talked to someone from Russia, and they pointed out that some of the books that the classic C++ books have been translated into Russian, but they wouldn't want them. They prefer the English. And I said, well, why not? I mean, if you're a Russian speaker, if Russian's your first language, wouldn't you want the books in Russian? They said the problem is the interpreters might not all interpret in exactly the same way. In other words, you may be learning the wrong terms for things. And so it's just better if we're all in English, because then we can communicate better and we're all using the same. And I hadn't really thought about that at all, but it makes me, very, very happy that I am an English native speaker, because I would be, I'm just always intimidated by other languages. And so I love to live in a world where a lot of people have done the hard work of learning to speak my language. So I don't have to learn to speak theirs.
We're all doomed.
We're all doomed, yes. All right. So I think, is there anything else we need to cover, Phil, before we wind down?
I don't think so. I think we covered it. We did
Okay.
mention that the WG21 plenary is going on as we speak.
Right.
So I don't know what Harold's doing here. He should be there.
I told you I'm not in the details. I'm enable people to.
You're
and
facilitating.
We have
facilitating
actually
participation. Yeah.
at least one from a compiler vendor.
But it does mean that the timing is such that C++23 is pretty much getting locked down as we speak, but we can't report on it because we don't know.
That's right. We don't
Next
know what's going on. In fact, you actually can't report live on what's going on.
Not live.
You have to wait until after they make a formal announcement, and then we can talk about it. So we're all anticipating this. Yeah, 23 is getting pretty close. Anyway, thank you very much for Harald for sharing with us. It's great to see what's going on in Sweden. All very excited about that, but also glad to see that you're starting to do in-person meetings. I wish we were starting to do those in the Bay Area. I think that one of the problems we're finding is that finding a host that's willing to take that on, because they're all terrified of the liability of what could go wrong or something like that. So that's one of our issues. Anyway, I'm going to ask you to join me in wishing all of our listeners safe coding. So from all of us to all of you, safe coding.
Safe coding.
Wow, didn't we do that so well, didn't we? All right. Thanks a bunch.